And so that just kind of reinforced the whole idea that, yeah, okay, I wasn't doing things the best way I could. Now here's a way, and I'm doing them better.
Welcome to Better System Trader, the podcast to help systematic traders of all levels improve their trading. We'll give you loads of expert tips and practical advice on system design and validation, money management, trading psychology, and many other topics. Whether you're just starting out or a savvy systematic trader, we're here to help you improve your trading and find more success. This is Better System Trader with your host, Andrew Swanscott.
Hi there and welcome to this week's Trading Thought. One of the appeals of automated trading is that, it's automated. So if you want to, you can really just set it and forget it. However, there can be some dangers with doing that. In fact, about a year and a half ago, I went through a period of being, you could say, a little bit slack with monitoring my automated strategies. And there was one particular occasion where my set it and forget it approach actually turned into a case of forget it and regret it. Now, I had a stop loss order for one of my strategies that had been rejected, and I failed to check my trading platform for a few days because I was traveling and I was tired, etc. So when I did finally check up on my strategies, I found out that, I ended up paying for that particular lesson at about 2 to 3 times the original stop loss size. So that was a stupid thing to do, but I learnt my lesson there, and now I check my platform at least once per day. So that's one type of monitoring we can do for automated strategies, just a quick checkup to make sure everything is running smoothly. And I think it's incredibly important because technology issues can happen at any time. But there is another process that I picked up from Kevin Davey, actually, and that is a periodical checkup which looks at the trading process from a different angle. And since I've implemented this checkup into my own trading process, I've been able to identify some issues or areas of improvement that could have gone on for a lot longer if I'd left them unchecked. So I've asked Kevin to join us today for a very quick chat to explain this process some more, including why it's important and some examples of the benefits or the things that he's found by following this process. So let's head over to my chat with Kevin Davey now to hear more about this process. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
So why is it important to monitor or review your trading results periodically?
Well, the big thing is you want to know that you're on the right track. And that really goes for no matter what kind of method you use to trade or what kind of process you use to develop strategies. You want to make sure that what you're doing is actually working. And so what I recommend and what I do is periodically check in on strategies, on the performance and how they've been doing. And when you look at it as a whole, you'll see, yeah, it seems to be working, or no, something's going wrong. And if you realize something's going wrong, then you have to make some changes, and it might be changes to the process itself. You can't be afraid to do that.
Yeah, cool. So when you're actually doing that review, what's the process there? So what are you actually doing?
Well, what I normally do, I do this once a month. So I look at all the strategies that I've created, and these are ones that I'm trading live and also ones that I'm not trading live. And so I'll just record the performance the previous month for each of those strategies, and then look at the aggregate performance for each of those strategies. Now, undoubtedly, you're going to see some really good strategies, some really bad strategies. But overall, you would like to see that you're making money, obviously. But if you're not, it doesn't necessarily mean your process is broken, because you could still easily have a good process and still have a losing month or a long period of time where you lose money. But what you want to make sure is it falls within the expectations. And that I'll kind of leave that out there as something I'm not really going to define, because it might be different for everybody. But, you have a general idea of what you expect out of your strategies. And if you notice the performance of all of them are, as soon as you go live or as soon as you're done developing, just go bad, that's telling you something, and you need to take note of that and possibly change what you're doing.
Yes, do you have any examples of things that you've found during this review process that perhaps might have been missed if you hadn't done that in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely, this is probably going back a few years, I've definitely had strategies where when I was developing my process that I used to create strategies, I noticed that a lot of my strategies would, as soon as I started trading them, there were quite a few that would just not work right from the beginning. I mean, I guess you could almost call it infant mortality. The ones just starting out just never seemed to work. And, I saw that enough times to think, either I'm the unluckiest guy in the world or I'm doing something incorrectly. So that made me go back and look at the process I was doing. And it's, you never know for sure what you did, but in my case, I thought, well, maybe I'm just trading strategies that have too many rules with them, or I'm optimizing too much, too many iterations. And so I started cutting back on those kind of things. And then, in the months that followed, I noticed that I didn't have as many of those strategies falling apart right at the beginning. And so that just kind of reinforced the whole idea that, yeah, okay, I wasn't doing things the best way I could. Now here's a way, and I'm doing them better.
Yeah, so those are kind of more like internal factors that you're looking for, maybe chinks in the process that you're using to develop strategies. But what about external factors like brokers and execution and that type of ththing? What do you look for there?
One of the things you could look for is excessive slippage. So, for example, if, you assume you have an ES strategy and you assume that your slippage is round turn a couple ticks, $25 a contract, and you notice you're getting a lot more than that between, your real trading versus what your strategy says. That might tip you off that, maybe there's some delay. It might not necessarily be the broker's fault, but maybe you're using a VPS, a virtual private server, to run your strategies, and maybe there's some kind of delays built in or something like that. So you can look at some things like that to see what's going on. Another thing that you could do is keep track of errors and mistakes, anything that's abnormal. So this could be missed trades. It could be internet disconnections, those kind of things. So, for example, one thing last year that I noticed, I was getting a lot of orders that were market orders that were rejected right when the market opened. And as it turned out, it's probably a broker-related issue where the time clock's a little bit different, and it tries sending an order to the exchange like a split second before the exchange opens, and then the order just gets rejected. So for a while, I just accepted it and said, I was usually around the computer and I could fix it really quick. But eventually it got to the point where I said, okay, this is something that I have to, I've reviewed it and I realize it's an issue. So I have to go and make a fix. So in this case, there were a couple of code fixes that actually I'm still testing, but they seem to be working really well. And now I don't get those order rejections, or I get very few of them. So that's a good example of something along the lines of like actual execution.
Thanks, Kevin. Now, how can people find out more about you?
The best way is probably just to visit my website, which is kjtradingsystems.com. And, there's a lot of free information there, and also information on some of the services I offer. And there's a contact form pretty much on every page. And, I love hearing from traders who are struggling and want to improve their trading. So feel free to email me.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for listening to the Better System Trader podcast. The next step is to head over to bettersystemtrader.com for more expert tips, practical advice, and exclusive content. Catch us next time for even more great ways to improve your trading here on Better System Trader.